Hey everybody, it's Brandon with Slingshot Sports, and today we're talking about the Sentry bar and replacing some critical parts and pieces on your Sentry bar. In this particular case, we're going to be talking about down here at the chicken loop assembly, in case you need to replace your whole chicken loop assembly, your rotor head, or to replace and service the ball bearings in here to make your rotor head work seamless and easy. So you're going to need a few tools and things to go ahead and get this. The first one is going to be the Sentry bar in question that you would like to work on. You're going to go ahead and need to take all the lines off, storing them on the ground or in the grass or whatever, so that you have access to all the parts and pieces on the inside. Additionally, you're going to need a replacement chicken loop and or the replacement parts that you're going to use, i.e. some ball bearings. We have a chicken loop here, and we have a chicken loop rotor head kit, which includes a flagging line tube and some flagging line replacements. We will not need all of the pieces in here, so we'll be able to save some of these for later use, but we are gonna need a few of the critical pieces in here. So let's go ahead and open up some of these things. You are gonna need a few simple tools to accomplish this task. One is gonna be the Allen head key provided that comes with the service pack included in your Sentry bar. It comes in there, go ahead and pull that out. You're gonna need a piece of line for a feeder line. I always like to have a small Phillips or flathead screwdriver on hand to use to pry things, open knots, move stuff around. You're gonna want a small piece of tape, some scissors, some needle nose pliers, a utility knife or sharp knife for cutting, and a tube of Gorilla Glue Super Gel Super Glue and or Loctite 406 Super Glue, and we're gonna use this to reattach some stuff in the bar later. First things first, I'm gonna set a few things to the side. We're gonna need to remove the flagging line from the flagging line assembly. So we're gonna pull the bar, the tubes all the way up so I can see what's going on here. I'm gonna open my chicken loop, kind of move it out of the way. I'm gonna pull my flagging line out a little bit. I'm gonna undo the small lark's head that's on this I-ring. So by simply pulling the lark's head loose and popping it over the ring, I'm able to remove the ring. Again, tiny little ring, set it to the side somewhere that you aren't gonna lose it. Pull off the safety retention ring, go ahead and set that to the side, don't lose it. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna come up to the top side of the bar and I'm gonna pull my whole flagging line, bungee and all, through the whole tube and remove it from the flagging line tube so that it's separate and independent. So now what you can see here is I have my bar still attached, main line, flagging line, everything's still there. I just don't have my flagging line through the bar. My next step is I'm gonna go ahead and pull the flagging line tube down out of the area that it's in, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove this end of the tube so that I can pull this tube out. So as you can see, we've removed our flagging line from the center, so there's nothing left in the center of the tube. I'm gonna go ahead and take my utility knife. I'm gonna carefully slice down, going through the PU tube, making sure to cut fully through the tube, and just be careful not to cut your hands or anything else. It might take a little bit of sawing, but you will get through the tube. And I can remove that, set that to the side. Actually, I can discard this because I'm not gonna be using that in the future. Now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is pull my tube completely through my chicken loop assembly, removing it from the chicken loop assembly. I'm also gonna push it all the way up through the bar, bring it all the way up to the retention rings up here. Now, if you're in a hurry and you don't have needle nose pliers, you can just break these tabs off by grabbing them and snapping them. I'm gonna see if I can do it the resourceful earth way. Just squeeze those two tabs down. Try to apply some pressure on both sides. Slide the retention ring down, removing it from the tube, setting it aside, and pulling the whole tube out of the assembly. This tube is now not usable, so you can go ahead and take it in its cut end and discard it. So now that I have my flagging line removed, what I'm gonna go ahead and do to make my life a little bit easier is I'm gonna go ahead and take a piece of tape, or in this case I have some kite repair tape. I'm going to cut it down to size, and I'm gonna stick this repair tape over top of the metal plate here, which keeps the ball bearings in place so that when I disassemble this chicken loop, my ball bearings don't fall out and I don't lose them. We will be replacing those ball bearings after we get this apart, so it's okay, but for right now, we're gonna prevent them from falling apart as we disassemble the chicken loop. And you see all that I have left here is my main line going into my chicken loop. So my next step is gonna be to locate these 2 set screws, taking the Allen key that was provided in my kit with my Sentry bar, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove and start to unscrew these Allen keys, set screws, that hold the rotor head in place until you can get it with your fingers. Go ahead and unscrew the screw and set it aside. Now at this point you can see I can pull my whole chicken loop unit off of my rotor head. Now if I'm going to be replacing my whole chicken loop unit, I can set this aside. I don't actually need this, and I'm going to start getting into the rotor head. So to simply replace the rotor head, all I would need to do is pull the bottom part off the rotor head, which removes the cap. As you can see, I have a piece of rope around this ring here. I'm going to take my small flathead screwdriver and I'm going to go ahead and pry this rope off of the ring and slide the rotor head off of the main line. Now in this case, all I have left is my main line tube. Now I'm going to take my new chicken loop or my rotor head or whatever it is. In this case, I just need to take the rotor head off. And once again, I'm going to be careful about the ball bearings down here, because as I remove this rotor head, it removes the tension that keeps all this stuff in and the ball bearings can actually come out. So in this case, I would remove the screws and get the rotor head separate from this chicken loop. And for the interest of time, I'm just gonna go ahead and use this rotor head because there's nothing wrong with it, and we're gonna pretend like I took it off of this chicken loop. So I have my rotor head completely removed. I'm gonna reverse the process that I just did. I'm gonna go ahead and take my rotor head, and you notice there's 2 holes in the top. One that goes directly through the center of the bar, and one that's on the edge and kind of kicks out to this flange on the edge. You wanna concentrate on the kick out side one, and we're gonna use our main line. We're gonna slide it through that side kick out so that you can see the main line comes out to the side, and I'm just gonna push pretty hard to try to get as much of the PU tube through the rotor head. If you really wanna make it easy on yourself, grab your needle and those pliers, pull on this part a bunch, and get some of the PU tube to come through the rotor head. That's gonna make putting the rope over the top really easy. So now that I have some through there, I'm just gonna simply take the rope, I'm gonna put it around the circle like so, and now I'm gonna pull on my PU tube to get it to seat back down, and I should be able to, at this point, take the other piece of my rotor head and snap it over the top of all of this. If for some reason it's not fitting, it's because you have too much PU tube exposed. I've replaced my rotor head on my bar. Everything is all good to go. The next step is to integrate the rotor head back onto the chicken loop. So in this case, what we're also gonna do at this moment is we're gonna go ahead and replace the ball bearings on this bar because I've noticed they haven't been working super great. So what I need for that is I need my ball bearing replacements and I need my chicken loop in question with the rotor head removed. Now you notice I taped the bottom down here, and the reason for that is I want to stop the ball bearings from going everywhere, because as you can see, once I remove the tape, I'm able to push this pin in, making space, and you see very quickly all the ball bearings dropped right out of place. Okay, so I've moved my old ball bearings to the side, and what I'm gonna go ahead and do is open up my bag with my ball bearings in it, and I'm gonna very, very carefully dump them out onto the table into my safety ring. I'm gonna pick up the chicken loop in question. Like I said, you see this whole post actually slides completely out of the bar. So now that we have all the ball bearings removed, you can see this post very easily slides completely in and out of this unit. And what we need to do is have it closed enough that the ball bearings will not fall through. So you can see there's a little bit more gap on this top surface than on the bottom surface down here. So by holding that gap, what I can do is very carefully, one by one, I can insert the ball bearing in between the space, pull it back down tight so that the ball bearing doesn't fall out, and you notice gravity kind of pulls it down to the bottom, leaving me space to insert my next ball bearing. And I want to very carefully push it into the space, clamp it back down, and let it slide down with gravity. Just keep moving along, put them in if you need to. Now this last one is the critical one. You get it in. Once you have it in, push with your finger on that plate, holding the ball bearings in place. Flip it upside down so that gravity can help you. Everything is in, everything looks good. I'm gonna take that piece of tape that I had and I'm gonna reapply it to the bottom of my chicken loop over the top of that piece so that I don't have to worry about those ball bearings falling back out now that I have them in. Okay, so what I'm gonna go ahead and do is take the post, note the orientation of the two dimples on the side. You're gonna wanna line those up with the holes in the rotor head. So you're just gonna do this optically. As you slide that piece in, you're gonna line it up so that the grooves line up with the holes. Once you feel like everything looks where it should, which I'm feeling like everything is lined up, checked it a couple times, I'm gonna go ahead and start hand threading in my set screw again. And I'm gonna begin to screw in one of the posts. And you should be able to screw it in relatively easy. If you hit a point where it's not going in easily, that means the orientation of your pin is not perfect and you need to remove the pin and realign those holes. And now, before I tighten that one completely, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my other set screw post and I'm gonna go ahead and start threading that one in. And that's just gonna ensure that I'm getting proper alignment before I tighten the whole piece down 100%. Just wanna slowly work these things into their threads, making sure that you feel very little resistance as you're going in. Once you feel like everything's lining up and you're getting these screws to like set through where they're supposed to set through, you can just keep working them in all the way. Just gonna go back and do that first one, just making sure it's like seated and everything looks really good. You can see it's flush on that side, it's flush on this side, everything looks good. It's a solid connection and it's spinning really nice with those new bearings. So at this point, I can go ahead and remove my bearing tape because the post is completely secured, the bearings can't fall out, and now I have my chicken loop re-put on my bar with my new rotor head and my new ball bearings. I've been able to service this whole lower unit. Everything looks good and aligned. Now I'm gonna go through the final steps on how to get this bar back up and running. And what I need to do is I need to open my flagging line / swivel kit. I'm gonna go ahead and pull out my flagging line tube. I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the two retention ring pieces, which is the upper tube flange and the bottom plastic retention ring. Now all these other parts and pieces in here, the flagging line, the eye ring, and my rotor head, I've actually already used pieces and they're gonna be reused. There's not significant wear on any of those parts and pieces. So I'm actually just gonna save these parts for later application, just in case I need them in the future. So I can set those to the side. So now that I have that done, I'm gonna take my flagging line tube. One end is pre-glued with a plastic stopper, and one end is scuffed up and has nothing on it. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the part that has nothing on it and you're gonna feed it through the hole on the bottom of your bar, pushing on it until it pops out the top of the rotor head. Once it pops out the top, you can grab it from the top and you're just gonna pull it until it's fully seated against the metal flange down here and everything is fully seated and tight. And I'm gonna go ahead and install this line through the other tube or the other hole in my bar than the main line tube. And that's what makes the bar auto unswivel. So you wanna make sure those tubes go in the separate tube cavity. And now I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna pull everything tight to my chicken loop. so that I can begin working in the area that I need to kind of have slack in. Next step I'm gonna do is take the flange of the top tube. I'm gonna slide it through the retention ring, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the bottom piece, the retaining ring, and I'm gonna clip it over the two plastic flanges, securing my plastic flange in place on the ring. As you can see, it's not going anywhere. The next step I need to do is I need to actually glue this end of my bar to this retention flange, and that will be the final step until I feed my bar in. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is pull this part out. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my super glue, in this case my Gorilla super glue, or Loctite 406 super glue. I'm gonna open up my super glue, making sure everything is laying flat so that I can work fast when I need to. I'm gonna take my glue, I'm gonna apply a small but amount enough to cover the whole tube. Make sure all surfaces are coated evenly, and make sure you don't have so much glue that it's gonna squirt out everywhere. I feel pretty confident with that amount. Make sure that it doesn't touch anything. I would recommend putting your lid back on your super glue as quickly as possible. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this line, making sure there's no kinks or twists, and you're gonna firmly secure it into the plastic retention piece. And it's gonna hit a wall, and then you're gonna make sure it goes completely up in there. There is a little excess glue here, and I'm gonna use this little bit of paper to kind of pull some of that excess glue off the flange. I just don't want a ton of extra glue on there if I don't need it. No big deal though. I can even use my finger if you don't mind a little super glue on the finger. Not too bad. I just want to make sure I give about 10 to 20 seconds for that part to set up. And a good thing to do is just to rotate the tube around a little bit, making sure that you're getting a firm connection on all surfaces and that the glue is dispersed evenly on that plastic flange. Okay, once I've given it, 10 to 20 seconds to set up, I need to go ahead and re-thread this through the flagging line tube. And the easiest way to do that is actually to take a piece of feeder line. In this case, I just have some old kite line that I had laying around. I'm gonna go ahead and take that feeder line, and I'm gonna start by feeding it through the chicken loop side of the bar. And I'm just gonna push this all the way through the tube until I see it come poking out the top. And the reason why I do this is a lot easier to push through the tube than the bungee line is. So you can see it's out through the top. I'm gonna go ahead and take my bungee line. Now this is another important step. You can see the line comes cleanly down next to my trim line. It's not wrapped around my trim line like this, or it's not going through my trim line. It's coming outside of the trim line. I'm gonna go ahead and take my feeder line, and I'm gonna tie a 2 overhand knot in my line in order to secure the loop so that when I pull it through, the knot doesn't inadvertently come undone. So tie 1 knot. I just do a second simple overhand knot in order to ensure it doesn't come undone. That looks good. And I'm gonna reach up here and I'm gonna pull my feeder line back out, which pulls my flagging line completely through my bar. I'm gonna undo my knot, which was not a very tight knot. That's why you don't wanna use anything too crazy secure, because you're gonna take it off really quickly. I'm gonna remove my knot. I'm going to take my safety retention ring. I'm going to slide the line through the small side of the safety retention ring, and then I'm gonna take my little I-ring. I'm gonna put it through one side of the I-beam ring. I'm gonna put it through the other side of the I-beam ring, giving myself a little U shape. And then I'm gonna put it completely over the I-beam ring, cinching the lark's head down. You notice the lark's head is on the center post, not on the outsides of the ring. And then I'm gonna take my plastic little piece and slide it all the way up against the retention ring, making sure that it stays in place. I can check this to make sure that everything looks good. There's nothing pulling through. I can go ahead and click my safety back in, come up to this side, stretch everything back out and make sure I don't have any weird twists or anything. I can see my glue has started to set up. I would probably wait about 30 minutes before I bring this into the water. But as far as all the services that we did on this bar, everything is good to go, put back together as the manufacturer intended, and this bar is ready to go on the water as soon as the glue dries.